to welcome everyone to the McMinnville Short Film Festival question and answer for drama comedy #1. Got filmmakers with us from around the world. It's pretty incredible, and I'm excited about this. So let's just start with a round robin here real quick. Identify yourself, your film, and let us know where you're coming to us from. And we'll go in the order I see you, left to right, top to bottom. So Dave, you're first.
Yes, my name is David Hill. I'm the writer, director, and kind of producer of Late Shift, and worked on with Ray and a wonderful cast, and we fought the COVID restrictions and got it done, and that's it.
Okay, Stephen, you're next.
Hi there, I'm Stephen Coltrane. I'm the writer and producer of the human rights drama Give Me a Name. Unfortunately, because of COVID restrictions, the director, Sheena, can't be with me. I was going to say this evening, it's this evening here in London. I guess it's lunchtime over there with you guys. But yeah, so I live and work in London, and our film was filmed in London. And we're really very, very excited to be at McMinnville because this will be our premiere in the US, our first screening.
Great. All right, Brian.
Hi, my name is Brian Blum. I'm the writer and director of My Daughter Yoshiko. I'm coming to you guys from Brooklyn, New York, and the film was shot in Miami, Florida in 2019. What is time anymore? I don't remember, but yeah, in March 2019.
Okay, and Pierre.
My name is Pierre Gaffié. I'm living in France, near Paris. I am the director of the short film Apocalypse Notes, Music is in Danger. The film has been filmed 200 meters from my place, where I live, in a tea room. And due to curfew and everything, I cannot be with the main actors. Sorry about that. I should have married the actress to have her here.
Sounds like a good plan. Okay, Mitch, you're next.
My name is Mitch Yapko. I am the director of Bigger Than a Breadbox. I live in Los Angeles, California. We shot in Los Angeles, California. All of our actors are from Los Angeles, California. So it was a little local adventure.
Okay, and Jason, even though it says braces there.
I'm Jason Rosenblatt. I'm the writer and director, editor of Braces. Shot in Portland, Oregon, and this is the star of the film, Crystal Loverro.
Hi.
And we shot, I don't know, in March or something like that.
Yeah, I think it was March.
Yeah.
I'm the braces of the film. See.
Yeah, she had them just for the film. Yeah.
So in March, before or after they locked things down?
It was definitely locked down when we shot. So yeah.
All right. Well, let's go to one of my, I guess, my favorite question to lead off with is what inspired you or motivated you to make the film that you made that we just saw? Back to you, Dave.
Yes, well, I've always been interested in Kubler-Ross's 5 stages of grief: denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. And I thought maybe I could fit all of those into a semi-dream, one-night short film, where having a woman go through all those stages, and that was what I was trying to do. And also had some thoughts about how a woman tends to think that they can keep people alive by feeding them, and it's kind of a goes back to the shamanism, I believe, that that food keeps people alive, which it does in a way. But I think anyway that I wanted to play with that idea, and I was able to get that all done in 14 minutes.
All right, Stephen.
Okay, so Give Me a Name arises out of the aftermath of the Brexit referendum in the UK in June 2016 and the subsequent election of you-know-who in the US in November of the same year. And it seemed to me around that time that there had been a very great change in society. And the rise of nationalism, which had a particularly vicious flavour, certainly here in the UK, and the way that was being co-opted by government, almost like they were riding a tiger, led me to look at how the enemies of the state were being defined, and it was a case of that definition had broadened from, if you like, the usual suspects, Islamic terrorists, poor working class people, black people in the inner cities, and it felt like it was starting to broaden to anybody who was not supporting the Brexit project, anybody who was perceived as a liberal, anybody who was perceived as an intellectual, no matter how wealthy or respectable you were, suddenly it felt like you were a target. And it was the first time in my life that I felt personally threatened by my own government, even though I'd not received a direct threat myself. So these thoughts were going around in my mind during 2016 and the subsequent year. And I started to conceive of a scenario in which ordinary people, people just like me, could be whisked off the street and incarcerated and questioned simply for not conforming to the expectations of the state, the new expectations of the state, the impulse towards fake patriotism. And so I sat down and I just started developing a feature, and over the coming months I wrote a feature script, and then Sheena and I, the director, we've worked together for many years, and we sat down and we said, well, we don't have the money to make the feature now, but we do have the money to make a short. So let's try and derive a short out of this. And so we threw a few ideas around, and we took parts of the feature screenplay and we just played around with them a bit. And from that emerged Give Me a Name, the short, which is what we're putting in front of you at this festival. And we're very, very excited and passionate indeed about wanting the message of this film to be broadcast to the world, because I think it's something that doesn't just affect the UK and the US. It is a global theme, because the rise of nationalism and the tendency to target your enemies, no matter who they are, is now a global problem. And I think that we need to alert people to this. Even now that you-know-who is no longer president, I think it's still a very pressing issue for the US, and we're delighted that we're able to show the film in the US to an American audience.
So obviously you must still be thinking in terms of a feature perhaps in the future.
Absolutely, yes. I mean, we'll see what kind of what kind of reception the short gets, but if it's positive enough, then that will act as a springboard, we hope, to attract funding for the feature.
All right, thank you.
Or it could be a TV series. We'll see. It could work either way.
Okay, Brian, your motivation or inspiration. Sounds like you're muted.
Yeah, yes.
Zoom. I mentioned it before you guys started recording, but I wanted to apologize again for the sunglasses. I just had laser eye surgery, so staring at screens is a little difficult for me still. So my inspiration for the film, I had done a lot of volunteer work in high school with a program called the Friendship Circle, which paired high school volunteers with families with special needs children for weekly or biweekly social visits to create just a recurring social contact for people who struggled to develop that. And that was my first exposure to parents and families with special needs. Originally, I wanted to go home to Miami, which is my hometown, so that my parents could be involved in one of my film productions, because they made a lot of sacrifices to send me to film school. My mom had a doctor's office location, and so I was like, well, what can I write around this location? And then I was reminded of the work that I did and the undying love that I witnessed from these parents, and I thought that was something that was worth commemorating on film. So I started talking to some parents that I worked with, and I happened to find out that one of my high school teachers had a daughter who was diagnosed with Asperger's, and I sat down and I talked through her story, and I connected with it so much that I decided I want to tell your story specifically. And the doctor's office scenes were scrapped, and I didn't end up using that. So the initial impetus to make the film, which was a free location, was totally scrapped because I found this really wonderful story that I really connected to, and that is the film that emerged.
Great. Okay, Pierre.
Okay, I think everything lies in the misspelling of my film's title. It's not Apocalypse Now, it's Apocalypse Notes, but it is funny because I wanted to make a film about music, about what would happen if someday music should disappear. I think we are the first generation globally to ask the question, how long will it last? I mean, the weather, global warming, social security, everything. And I thought it could be interesting to imagine that one day all the world will run out of melodies, out of tunes, because our music charts, as we know it, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, has been created 1,000 years ago by an Italian monk. And at the time, I think he couldn't imagine that one day on planet Earth, we will be 7 billion people and that everybody will play, sell, make music. So I'm always surprised each year when I hear on the radio so-called new music, because most of the time it reminds me of old music. So I think there must be some kind of maybe plagiarism in it. And so I think it's a take on global warming, but related to music. And I think in France, everything goes back to love. So I should add something. A few years ago, I was with my fiancée. She's a clarinet player. Okay, she's a musician, and I'm a filmmaker. And at weekends, she was practicing her instruments, and I was writing scripts, my scripts, my films, and she was making much more noise than me. And I thought, okay, Isabel, every weekend you are playing the same tunes, and you have only 7 notes. Me, I have to invent new images, and we don't have a charts. We don't have charts in film, so it's easier for you than for me. So no, it's a joke. It's a true story. It's a true story. But I've always wondered that, okay, music is a very hard art to practice. There are some geniuses, of course, but filmmakers, we have to provide people with new images without having a chart. So sometimes it's more difficult to be without boundaries. It looks like very serious, but it's a comedy, the film.
Thank you. All right, moving over to Mitch.
So I actually met Frank and Lauren Leon a couple of years ago. They're the writers of the short, and I read the script and I laughed out loud reading most of it. The film sort of explores the idea that living in a tiny house is actually something that people want to do on purpose. And one of the quotes from the short that just got me was sort of HGTV is full of shit. And I am an avid HGTV fan. I love all the Fixer Upper shows, and watching the tiny house shows where everyone is leaving their 3,000 square foot beautiful homes for a life in 200 square feet with their spouse, dog, and 3 children, and somehow they're selling it as an upgrade in their lives. It makes me laugh, and having shot a short film now in a tiny home, the idea that there would be any more than one person living in this place is just absolutely ridiculous to me. So in terms of the inspiration, it was all Frank and Lauren that wrote it. Lauren developed it with her comedy troupe, and those were the guys that all starred in it. So I was just lucky enough to be asked to direct it.
All right, great. Okay, over to Braces, Jason.
So the inspiration for this came from, I hope it's okay to say this. I think it was an agency that said they wouldn't rep you because you had just gotten braces put on.
Yeah.
And they were like, no, we don't, rep any actors who have that. And she had posted on Facebook about that, and I was like, that seems stupid. Like, yeah, let's show them what they're missing out on. So I wrote the script for Braces just to have a little awkward, scene about that. So yeah, it was a spite film, I guess, written in a very Curb Your Enthusiasm, sort of manner. So yeah, I think I just finished watching all of Curb Your Enthusiasm and Seinfeld, so that was probably very much the tone and origin of it. Spite film. There you go.
Well, spite seems like a good a reason as any. Honestly, I think the response I disliked the most when I asked this question in the past was for the reason they did it is said, well, because I got hired to do it. And I thought, well, that's not really the best response that I want to hear why you made this film. So moving on to the next question, this really goes into production challenges, but very specific to our times right now, and that's COVID. Some of you shot your film during COVID. Some of you this past year maybe have been trying to make a film during COVID. So looking for what challenges you had or maybe going through right now as you're trying to make something during the pandemic. And we'll starting of course with Dave. And I know that Dave shot during the pandemic and was masked up.
Yep. Anyway, this guy right here was our liaison with SAG-AFTRA and worked back and forth as to what we could and could not do and what we had to do. And we had hired a full-time on-set health safety supervisor, Dodie Knowles. She was very enthusiastic about her job, and she made sure everybody was masked and that we got tested twice during the shooting, and we managed to keep the Oregon film office they were fairly easy to please, but SAG-AFTRA, they were very, very, very strict on us, and so we ended up. I had to give a chart as to how far that the crew was separated, socially distanced from the cast, and that the only certain limited number of people were on set. The 2 actors were married, so they did not have to. So they didn't have to wear masks during their scene, thank goodness. And but everybody else had to be masked. And we had a RV out back, which served as a green room where they did their makeup, and and Dodie would come through ahead and said, clear the set, non-masked people coming through, and they had to come through and get into position. Then a few of the cameramen and the AD and the sound guy could take their position, masked, of course, at an appropriate distance. It was a challenge. It was a real challenge, but it was. But everybody, everybody went along with it, and we got through it. And I give a lot of credit to Ray here. There he is, and he did a lot of that work too.
And to say this was also your first time directing, so in addition to the usual directing challenges, you also had COVID to deal with as well. So kudos to you. All right, back over to England, Stephen.
Well, we were very, very fortunate. We actually wrapped on February the 23rd last year. And just a few weeks later, the UK government imposed a lockdown, which would have made filming completely impossible. So yeah, we were just under the wire there. Of course, post was another matter. I had to coordinate the visual effects and the grade with a guy who lives in the north of England. And instead of Sheena and I being able to go to him, sit next to him, and watch him do the color, we had to correspond through Skype meetings, and he would try to do things in real time, and then the connection would go bad, and it was very, very frustrating and took a lot longer than would normally have been the case. Instead of wrapping it up in a few hours, it took a few weeks. So we sadly missed the deadline for a few festivals that we wanted to get into. But I have to say, having been able to finish the shoot before COVID really hit was such an enormous relief. The only challenge we faced during the actual shoot was the fact the building was unheated, and we were shooting in the middle of February. And so you can imagine what that was like. Everybody was absolutely freezing. I don't think it shows in the final product. We put a bit of a blue tint on the image anyway, which I think we would have done no matter what. So any blue noses and fingers are, I think, covered by that. But if you see somebody shivering on screen, that's real. That's not acting.
Well, I didn't notice the shivering, so looked good.
Okay, well, that's good. Well, there is at least one place where somebody should be shivering, but
well, yeah,
you'll see.
All right, Brian, over to you.
Well, I shot this film in 2019 before the pandemic hit, so there was not much issues regarding COVID. But I guess to answer your question, like now, primarily how I'm trying to stay productive is I am working with, thankfully, my roommate is a cinematographer and I used to be a sound mixer. So we have basically a small production house of equipment. And so we're looking for scripts with like one actor and that's it to try to produce, because with keeping things super minimal so we can actually produce things safely and make sure everybody's tested and follow proper protocols. But it's been an interesting exercise in minimalist writing and working with writing constrictions and production constrictions, but I feel like that's a great way to blossom creatively, and I'm excited to see what we come up with. Maybe you'll screen it.
Maybe. So just a quick little follow-up on that, because you have me thinking about, you're talking about dealing with it now. For the rest of you that will answer this as well, do you kind of find yourself projecting into when can I start really getting into filmmaking again? Do you think about that much, sort of targeting a date based on what you see in the news?
Definitely. I mean, I have 2 short films that I'm working on producing this year. One of them has only one actor. It's about a masculine farmer having a gender identity crisis when he finds a press-on acrylic nail in his tobacco field. And there's only one actor in the whole film, so that's very simple. But then we have another one that has like a cast of 4 or 5, and the director really is like, we're going to do all of pre-production, and then as soon as people start being vaccinated and we feel comfortable again, that's when we'll do it. So we're expecting, hopefully, to be able to do that sometime in the second half of the year. but larger productions like that just don't seem feasible, and it's not really worth risking our, health for something that we could easily just shoot 3 months later.
All right, thank you. All right, back over to Paris, which, by the way, Pierre, I haven't been to Paris for 5 years. Would love to get back over there again soon.
Be my guest, please.
Okay, I'm on my way.
We
COVID.
shot, we shot the film before the COVID, but we edited it in time of pandemic, and so I think that when you're making a film on the set, it's like passing your newborn baby to everyone on the set. The director of photography, the assistant, you said to everyone on the set, be careful, it's my script. And but when you're in the editing room, you are taking your baby just for you and the editor. So I think being in a lockdown in France allowed me to have some distance on what we have filmed. And we have recut the film many times. Maybe the result now is not what I anticipated it to be, but with the distance due to lockdown, maybe we have done it in the proper way, because sometimes what you wish is not exactly what you should do.
Thank you. Okay, Mitch.
So we shot our short at the end of January of last year. So we were also lucky. We were about 6 weeks off of, the start of the pandemic. We never had a cast and crew screening, obviously, because as soon as we were done with it, we couldn't. So in terms of production challenges, I mean, I think the hardest part for us was figuring out how to make an interesting short in 80 square feet and not have it be, visually boring. And so, I think we got really lucky. Our DP, Morgan Sandler, we shot on an Alexa, not an Alexa Mini, but an Alexa. So with the body and the lens, it was about, 3 feet of the 8 feet that he had to stand in. So, our DP definitely had his work cut out for him. I mean, we had to block everything. We would have someone, up in the bedroom watching. I'd be maybe outside with the window open watching the blocking. It was all just sort of a little bit of a dance to try to make it work. But at the end of the day, it was easy because our actors were so comfortable with each other from having been, in an improv troupe together. And then, like I said, our DP and our small crew was very nimble and able to sort of just move around the space and make it interesting and help me to, tell just a fun visual story and still make it feel like we were shooting in our own coffin, but make it feel fun at least. And in terms of projects, sort of moving forward, my writing partner and I have written a feature that basically centers around it's a coming of age story about two men in their mid 60s. So that's a nice little story with a very small cast. And I've actually worked in health and safety for a major studio for this past several months. So I've been working in it and with it, and it's a scary time out there for sure. Things are definitely challenging, but things can be done safely as well. But it takes a lot of precautions at this point to make it happen.
All right. So have you gotten many productions done over the past 9 months, or are things slow?
I mean, well, I've worked for the studio for the past 4 months, so we've been working on one project for that time. Before that, I was on three independent projects that, we had a COVID compliance officer and a set medic, and, everyone was very, very diligent about, wearing their masks, staying distant when they could, staying away from talent when they didn't have their masks on, sanitizing their hands, all the usual stuff that everyone tells you. And, knock on wood, it's been successful so far.
Okay, Jason, I know we talked about you shot just before the pandemic.
Well, we shot after.
Oh, pardon? Oh, that's right, just after.
We shot after. I mean, we just sort of, we had the crew wear masks. We had, everyone just sort of be responsible. It was still very early during the pandemic. At this point in time, we sort of just created a bubble of other film people that we're working with. So like, I've shot basically Crystal's reel. We shot like, I think 3 or 4 like just scenes for like a reel, and now we're literally today in the middle of shooting a short film. Like we shot a scene this morning, and after this is done, I think we have a self-tape to record, and then we're gonna go shoot another scene and a night shoot. So we're like day 3 of 4 continuous days of shooting, but it's just me doing all the crew work, and her and one other actor, inside an apartment. So yeah, it's definitely, and there's been some opportunities from this as well. Like for Braces, where we shot would not have been a usable location were it not like there was a giant fountain and they just shut the water off because they were shutting everything off basically for the lockdown. And I'm like, oh, we can shoot here now. This is not great, but it's cool. So yeah, it's sort of use what you have. In my case, I'm working on very low budget things. So we also did a project that was a mockumentary, and now it's great because you just, the crew wears masks and you just interview people outside. It was when it was still warm. It was a little easier. But that format seems to hold up during this time. But yeah, it is difficult once you want to involve more complicated things like that you need a crew for. So a lot of wire mic stuff we're doing now, a lot of set boom, we don't have a sound guy. It's a little tricky, but it's still rewarding. And what, you just got vaccinated yesterday?
I did. Yeah, I just got vaccinated. Arm's a little sore, but other than that, I feel great.
Yeah. So that's nice. But yeah, so.
All right, great. Well, we are a little over 30 minutes at this point, but I'm going to try to slip in one more question if you don't mind. So keep in mind, this will be probably maybe your last opportunity to say something. And as Stephen and I were talking about a little bit earlier, if you want to take this to a different direction, just because it's something you want to let the audience know, please take this opportunity to do this. But the question is, with all of you and all your experience as filmmaker, I know a lot of the people watching these films are people who want to make a film. So what advice would you give them based on your experience if they're thinking about making a film? What would you suggest they do? So Dave, over to you.
Well, get a wonderful crew. and don't skimp on paying people. I became director for this one because of a bad experience at a film festival with my last film that I wrote and produced, but was not the director. And I had my whole family there to see it at the Louisville Film Festival, and I expected I would be given a talk back, and they said, "Oh no, only the director can give a talk back." So I was okay, next film I'm going to be the director. Well, I know anything about directing, which I don't. I rely very much on Ray. I had a wonderful assistant director and the cinematographer and a wonderful crew that just worked like a clockwork together, and I didn't have to do much of anything. So, and that's what I would recommend to anybody: get a good crew that work together and know each other and can work like a clockwork.
Okay, thank you. All right, Stephen,
Yeah, I would fully endorse what Dave just said about the crew. I think there's probably two things that I would like to draw people's attention to. And the first one of those is the writing process. There is a lot of talk about, and I've seen this online in discussion forums, about how do I develop the story? How do I make the story work? And I think the thing that I would emphasize more than anything else is character. Your characters must be people who are interesting in themselves, well developed in themselves. You really have to get to know your characters, because when you do, the story will naturally arise out of the characters. So if you're wondering what a character's motivation is, then you probably haven't drawn that character deeply enough. Certainly the two characters in our film are, we felt that we got to know them very well. So I felt I got to know them very well in the writing process, and then in the directing process. I think Sheena would say she also felt she understood them very well. And when I was writing it, I tried to put myself in the position of each of them. It's really a two-header, my film, and I'd say, well, okay, what would I do in the situation of this person, having come from their background and being in the environment that they're in? What would be the next logical step? How would I react to this situation? What would I do? What would I say? And if the character is drawn deeply enough, that should just flow, and it should lead to a natural and satisfying conclusion. The other thing that comes up a lot in conversation on a much more mundane level is money. And I speak to a lot of people who are trying to crowdfund their productions. And I would say to anybody, if you're thinking of going down that route, absolutely go for it. I've run successful crowdfunding campaigns in the past. My first film was funded almost entirely through crowdfunding. But I think I would say, first of all, you cannot crowdfund without a crowd. So if you're going into crowdfunding, you must make sure that you already have an audience of people who you are on good terms with, who would be willing to help you out, and not just stick up a page online and say, this is my crowdfunding page, and then write a tweet about it and say, yeah, come and look at my crowdfunding page, please, thank you very much, and then leave it there. That's not going to work. You're not going to raise any money that way. But if you already have an audience of people that you're engaged with, not because you want to raise money, but just because you enjoy interacting with them, whether that be on Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, Snapchat, whatever social media you're using, make sure you're already engaged with them, because you would be amazed at what people will do for you when they find out that you're doing a creative venture. And if you present it to them in the right way, they will be more than willing, even in the current economic circumstances, to help you out. That would be the best advice I think I could give to somebody who wanted to do their own production.
All right, thank you, Stephen. Okay, Brian, and you are muted, I see. Where are you?
All right. I have an interesting piece of advice. I think the best thing you can do to learn about script writing, especially short form script writing, is asking if you can be a screener at a film festival. I've worked on screening committees for a few different film festivals, and I've done that for the past 5 years, and I watch like 60 to 100 hours of short films a year. And many of them are good. Many of them are people who are still learning and making mistakes. And I think it's much easier to learn by watching a variety of films. Some are good, some are bad. And learning from mistakes than learning from like Scorsese, because his films are amazing. So it's hard to like learn what not to do from a Scorsese film. You know what I mean? And I think I went to a fairly well-renowned, but most importantly, incredibly expensive film school. And I think I learned more about writing, being on programming committees for film festivals as a volunteer, than I did in 4 years of film school. So that's my advice: is email your local film festival and say, hey, can I be in your screening committee? Do you need people to help filter through submissions? It's a great learning experience, and it's free.
Well, we love that advice. Thank you, Brian.
Stand by it.
Okay, Pierre.
Well, I think many beautiful and meaningful things and advices have already been given, but I remember an interview with Jeremy Irons, the actor, the comedian, and he said that acting was like making love. It's better when the actors are good, but you have to do it even on your own. And I think it's the same with filmmaking. It's wonderful when you have a big, and not necessarily big, but a nice crew, but you have to make things on your own. I mean, when you write something, keep everything that you write, be stubborn. Sometimes there are scripts that you write at one moment and it will blossom 10 years after. Sometimes it happens. So you have to learn to be patient. And the last thing is, I think it's good not to watch too many things. If you want to make images, you have to be sober and not be drunk with all the films in the world. And sometimes I think that some filmmakers, even the best ones, they tend to talk a lot about cinema mythology. And I think it's not a good thing. I think you should reset sometimes.
Thank you. All right, over to Mitch.
Well, I mean, first of all of you guys have had some really incredible insights, and I just second all of what you guys have just said. So for the viewers, if they can rewatch this and listen to everything that everyone said, please do that. This in itself is a little bit of a film school. You know, I think that some of the most important things, first off, is again, just surround yourself with a good crew, a crew that you trust. As filmmakers, we're not an island. You know, we are only as good as the rest of our crew. You know, our DPs, our sound people, our PAs, everybody on the team that we bring in, especially for short films and low budget projects. You know, we have to be able to rely on everybody equally, and everybody's wearing multiple hats. And you know, to trust your crew is to allow for creativity to really happen on set and collaboration to happen on set. And it's so important to be able to listen to everybody and to, you know, as a filmmaker, come in with a vision, but also be willing to hear and adjust, you know, when good ideas are thrown about on set. You know, to be able to, as people that are sort of above the line, to be able to foster an environment of fun, because at the end of the day, we're just, you know, we're playing pretend ideally for a living, but if not, we're, you know, it's too many hours not to love what you're doing. You know, when we're spending 16 hours on a set, we want to, you know, call a wrap and be able to go out to the bar and grab a drink with everybody because you've just had a great day of creating something that's going to last and that people are going to be affected by. So yeah, I think that, you know, we're lucky to be doing what we're doing. And if you love filmmaking and you love telling stories, just find people that are like-minded and get out and do it. If you have a script, write to a budget. You know, if you don't have money to spend, make your story simpler, but make it something that's important to you. But really just remember to love what you're doing. And even when you're at that 16th hour and you're still trying to get your last scene done, just remember that everyone's there to do the same thing. And that is just to create something that's memorable and that's inspiring to somebody.
Thank you, Mitch. That was really nice. Okay, so Braces, you get the final word. Actually, I'll get the final word, but you're the final filmmaker to get a word.
My biggest piece of advice, and the thing I wish people would make sure they do, is create value for other people on the project. Like when I'm shooting these movies, like even though I wrote them and directed them, I don't think of them as my films as much as I'm shooting these actors' reels. And I'm even like earlier today we were shooting a scene, and the actor who I brought in just for like 3 lines, I decided I didn't like those lines that much, but rather than cut them, I'm like, okay, let's go ahead and just get the have you nail them. And then we'll just do a version without the lines. I'm like, yeah, okay, now we have the version that you can use for your demo reel, and I have what I need for my film. But I didn't just be like, you know what, I don't like those lines. Just give her the keys and walk away. You know what I mean? Like, make him come all the way out there and just lose what sort of had value for him, which is something to add to his reel and to add to his experience of doing well. Crystal, what advice would you have for actors or filmmakers?
I would say it's really important to, I know some other folks said similar things about it's really important to work with people you're comfortable with. And just piggybacking on that, I think it's important to work with people who respect you as an actor. And Jason, just based off of what he said too, is like he really respects the people that he works with. And there's value for everybody, and like that just makes everybody want to work extra hard because they have that respect. And it's just like, okay, this is someone who values me, I value them, and we're going to make something awesome. Because when you have everybody very enthusiastic, everybody feels comfortable, you're going to produce the best content that you can. I've definitely been on sets where I haven't been comfortable, or I wasn't valued, and it's just you don't end up having something as beautiful as when you're just with good people that you feel comfortable with, that you even consider friends. That's the best kind of set to be on.
All right, thank you very much. And I want to thank all of you. And honestly, this is the first of these virtual ones that I've moderated. I have one more in about an hour and a half. But I'm looking at this group and going, I really got lucky with this group. It's a Oregon-based film festival. I've got someone from the northern part of the state, the southern part of the state, New York, LA, Paris, London. It's like, wow, did I ever hit the jackpot on this with you guys? Which really also brings me to I do not like the virtual thing. I was at the film festival last year and the year before, and to be in your film in a theater, and then later that evening go out to a bar and drink wine and chat with you more about your film. I love that so much. And I know with you guys, I'm going, man, the topics, the things I could discuss with all of you is just incredible, because your stories are incredible. So I'm hoping we get to see you next year over there. It's McMinnville's a cute place, a beautiful town. The wine's great. And they do a really nice job. I kind of got involved about 8 years ago as a filmmaker, and just love the community, even though it's actually 300 miles north of where I live. It's definitely worth going up there. So hopefully we'll get to see all of you soon, and hopefully you'll soon be able to create more of the great work that you've been doing. So thank you so much. Thanks all the viewers for watching and listening.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Au revoir.
Thank you.
Wow.